Arise, minions, and welcome to unMadeGaming. We are here. We are back for our monthly Q&A, Ask a Lich. This, if you have not been here before, is a Q&A where you can hop on, you can ask me questions about GMing, about tabletop actual play, about just life in general, streaming, all kinds of fun stuff, running a community, unMadeGaming, anything that is, on your mind, being a player, being a GM, different games we've played here. Various systems we've played on the channel, or my thoughts on new and upcoming systems. Let's start with a classic sound here. Oh yeah, that's nice. Salute. So, if you like what we do here on the channel and you want to support what we do, the best way to do that is over on our Patreon. Link in the description down below for all that fun stuff. While you're down there clicking on that Patreon link, join us in the Discord. Be a part of the community. Be a part of the conversation. Come on over there. Come hang out. If you are a patron and you are in the Discord, which you should be, there is actually a special section for Ask Lich where you can ask your questions way ahead of time. We add them all to a list. You guys have priority on questions. We will also take questions on our various social medias, like the week-ish before or the day before in this case. For questions, and we also take questions live. Just do me a favor, put a question, the word question, in there so we can easily capture this fun stuff. Yeah, cool. So at the top of today's little chat here, I will remind everyone that there are no streams this week. We do have a stream tomorrow for our rewatch. We're doing a rewatch of Glenbrook. There will be no Thursday stream as it is U.S. Thanksgiving, and Saturday we do have a double Patreon stream, so that will be there as well. And then next week, similar situation, we will have the Tuesday show, the Tuesday rewatch, but there will be no Thursday show as I will be in Philadelphia for PAX with a bunch of people from the community. We're actually doing a community meetup on Friday at PAX. And PAX is the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of December. And we'll be doing all kinds of fun things. We'll be playing games. We'll be checking out some new board games, some new tabletop games. Possibly interviews might happen. But don't quote me on that. Possible interviews, possible vlog content. Who knows? Certainly not me. I'm the last to know what I'm doing. Yeah. But that's what's happening over the course of the next few weeks. So if you are coming to PAX, shoot me a tweet, shoot me an X, shoot me a Facebook, I don't know, whatever, man. Find me on the socials, shoot me a message, and we'll all hang out. We'll all do some cool shit. That's it. That's it. That's all I got. That's all I got. I have, before I dive into questions, I have been poring over the new books for The Walking Dead. The Walking Dead, the Walking Dead universe TTRPG. There's careful wording there because Free League has the rights through AMC, so it is specifically the AMC show, any of their web shows, and any of their spin-offs, but not the guys who made the comic. So it is slightly different. Yeah, so I have been poring over that. I actually made a quick hot and dirty character with my partner when I had just the PDF, but I now have the actual physical copy upstairs. I also have the starter set box in there, which is very cool, very awesome maps in there, very cool story that I will probably never get around to running, only because it is specifically set in Georgia, and I think it's set in Virginia, and I am currently noodling around with the idea of making a setting for New England, because that's where I live, that's where I know that place. Granted, we're currently rewatching, or I'm rewatching, my partner is watching for the first time, the show, and we're on midway through, not even, we're at the beginning of season 7, which is where I stopped watching when it first ran. So we've caught up to where I stopped watching, and we still have 4 or 5 more seasons to go. So yeah, that'll be very interesting. But that is coming soon to the channel. And maybe I'll write about it. There's an embargo on Walking Dead till the 28th, so I can't do any like reviews or anything like that until the 28th. I can just tell you how cool I think it is. But I may do some stuff. Maybe I take some photos, do some fun things. Yeah. So I think that's all I got for updates and stuff like that. If you are not following our second YouTube channel, you should go follow that channel. It's pretty great. It's actually where this live stream gets posted after I edit it, and there's going to be more content coming also soon to that. We'll see how soon. I don't think I ever finished watching the main show and never really got into the spin-offs. I never got into the spin-offs either, and I never finished the main show, but now I'm going to try to dig into the offshoots. They're all available on, like, I don't know, whoever bought AMC has a streaming platform, and they're all available on that, which makes things very convenient. Cool. So we have a bunch of questions here in our question doc. But again, if you guys have questions live, just shout them out. Just do me a favor and put the word question before that so we can capture those a little bit easier. Yeah. With that being said, let me scroll through our little documente here. Let's see here. Given your creative campaign scenarios, published homebrew content, and your facility writing, I'm not sure what that means, have you ever thought of an unMadeGaming comic? Easy answer. Yes, every day, forever and ever. I would shit if somebody took one of our shows and made a comic, made an animated short, wanted to hire us for a TV show or a movie or anything of those kind. Yeah, for sure. That would be exceptionally amazing. That would be unbelievable if we ever had the opportunity to hell, if somebody wanted to novelize one of our shows. Yeah, I would lose my mind if that ever happened. When I first started, I thought the coolest thing ever would be fan art, and then we got fan art, and it was in fact the coolest thing ever. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. Anything that is like either like now we get fan art, we have fan fictions, which are also, first of all, amazing. The artists and writers we have in the community are exceptional. But the fact that like that's happening blows my mind. If ever there were a comic or animated series or live action series, whatever, I would lose my shit. I would lose my shit. Wouldn't that incur IP complications? Yeah, sure, probably. Probably. I mean, for a comic, probably not. But for like a TV show or something like that, I mean, here's the thing, right? Like Critical Role has a TV show, and they don't mention D&D, but they're playing D&D, right? So as long as we don't mention Tales from the Loop or Coriolis or something like that, then it's just a space epic, or it's a kids on bikes epic. So I'm sure there's like lawyer ways around IP complications. Do I know them? No, I don't. I absolutely don't. Fucking Christ. I love when my friends ask questions. What's your favorite part about being a dungeon lich? Would you ever become a sea lich or a forest lich? You know what? I honestly don't know that I'm a dungeon lich. I mean, my office is in a basement, so I guess it is subterranean, and I guess typically dungeons are subterraneans. I'm definitely more of a dungeon lich than I am like an oubliette lich, right? But I don't know. I don't know. I would never become a sea lich. It just seems complicated. There's, buoyancy issues, and a forest lich. I feel like the swamp hags have that kind of covered, like hags and the fae. They get the forest down. I feel like it's kind of hard to be a forest lich without converting the forest into a dungeon, right? But yeah, I'm more of a mausoleum a Lich. And honestly, it's because I've told the story before on I think one of these or just in general maybe about how we got the name unMadeGaming. Was a game we played while I was deployed, and I took the nickname I received in that game to heart and sort of built a little blog about a world I was building. But the undead thing is just I've always liked zombies, and I have a big old zombie tattoo on my arm. And in Diablo 2 and subsequently 3 and 4, I have always played the Necromancer. I've always been that kind of undead summoner kind of character, and I've enjoyed them. I've enjoyed them. Let's see here. Uh, Anonymous, which means it's from G. Mundus Novus is the newest to live stream show on unMadeGaming. What is one thing you like most about each of the characters? William, Alec, Martha, Signy, and Cyrus. All right, let's take a look in order here. William. What do I like about William? William is a straight shooter, right? He is. So our character William is a military officer who was a doctor in the 1800s who survived a werewolf attack. And he's a straight shooter, right? He doesn't really question. He doesn't really question anything, right? Because despite being a man of medical science, I feel like what I kind of get from him is that he's less about like finding new medicines and finding new disease, like that kind of thing. It's I know how to fix the problem. The problem is internal bleeding. The problem is punctured lung. The problem is whatever. I know how to fix the problem. So you point him at a problem and he's straightforward. Yeah, is there a mystical dragon on an island? Maybe. He's like, okay, got it. Strange, but you tell me how to deal with it, and I will help you deal with it, right? He seems like a very straight shooter, and he's just a very interesting character. He has his own trauma. He is a laudanum addict, and despite being a military officer, he is rather timid when outside of his field of medicine. But he's a very, very interesting character, and I am excited to see what happens to him in this new arc. For Alec, I love this character. This is one of Melissa's characters, and Alec is. How do we describe Alec? Okay, so Alec is a transcendentalist, assigned female at birth, who like completely has donned the persona of a man, because in the 1800s women were not taken seriously in most any field, and let alone academia, and Alec is an academic, lover of lore and literature, etc., and is the ironically for a transcendentalist is the party's leader, is always the first person to jump to task, a wealth of knowledge, and probably one of the primary like lore investigators, and Alec very much prefers people over books, and that's one of the things I love, is that it's a very interesting and sometimes funny juxtaposition to have the leader of the party be someone who has little to no social skills. They were born into affluence, so they have little to no social skills with the working class, because that's just not their purview. But then also they spent so much time in books that they have a little bit of a disassociation with even people of their own station. So oftentimes Alec is doing their best, but their words are inappropriate for the social setting that they're in. And not that they're saying something inappropriate, just the way that they're saying it is, and it's great. It's very much a funny juxtaposition between the leader of the party and someone who is awful at most social interactions. Very often, Alec is considered rude, and also Alec tries to mother the youngest member of the party, and that interaction is also hysterical because that character has a very bad relationship with their mother, and so there's a weird juxtaposition there as well, which is awesome. So that's that. Moving on to the next character, which is Martha. Martha is actually the player, Wintress, plays in 2 of my campaigns, and they are a ridiculous breath of fresh air. I actually years ago I actually GM'd a like a 3 or 4 session game for Wintress and her son, as like a birthday present, and I assumed that the ridiculousness and slapstick humor and try anything attitude was due to her son being like 14, and just and then I've now played with Wintress for years, and I realized it's not just because he was 14, and it's 100% her fault. He is absolutely his mother's son when it comes to role playing games. But Martha is fun. Martha has a very interesting background where they have like maternal issues, paternal love, but then they were like forcibly disowned from their family, and then they also have a touch towards like the supernatural, which is they have a psychic ability called automatic writing, which is very fun. But one of the quirks of the character is she can't read. So she only can read what she automatically writes, but the entire time she's pretending like she has the ability to read. And she is also from a very affluent family and also only like 16. So she has no world knowledge, because the only time she was out of her like familial estate was when she was in a sanatorium. And she didn't learn anything about the world. So she just pretends like she knows about the world to not be looked down on, because she has been looked down on her whole life, to include lying about the reading, pretending she knows more about locations and foods and like social norms. And that's very interesting. And also just playing with Wintress is hysterical. Arguably the funniest character in the group. And then Signy Welker is played by G, and Signy has had a couple of changes from the start of the campaign. I believe a class change at a minimum, and some backstory change. And Signy is currently undergoing some plot stuff that's happening that G and I are kind of chit-chatting about back and forth here. But Signy is interesting as well, because Signy spent most of her life in, I want to say, Ireland, and then came to America. So she also has that sort of like, I was from a village in the country, and now we're living in we're going like to like cities and stuff. And I'm not, and it's like an American kind of culture shock. She's also a private investigator. So she is our primary like boots on the ground investigation. But Signy has a lot, right? Because G plays a lot of her characters close to the chest, and I think Signy is the closest. I think Signy has a lot to offer the group as far as advice, potential love interest, and investigatory prowess, and probably has the second most like knowledge about the supernatural. But I feel like Signy's also in a semi like a semi amorphous state of trying to make the best first impression, even though she's known the party for the last, like, I don't know, 5 months or so. I think there is a bit of fear of stepping on toes or overplaying her hand or like outliving usefulness. So there's always a striving to be useful to the group. That's a thing that I see in Signy. Whether that is true or not is yet to be had. But there are definitely several things that that she has held close to the chest throughout the campaign, and has either not told anybody yet, or told everybody, or told some people, like it takes a while to get some certain things out, because of, I think, like a fear of how it's going to be taken or how she's going to be seen in that moment, which is very fun. And last but not least, Cyrus. Cyrus was a late addition to the group, played by John, and I love Cyrus. Cyrus is he's actually a veteran to this situation. He was a sailor. He worked on like whaling vessels, but he was also in another group of Vassan hunters. So this is actually his second group. So he has the most knowledge about Vassan. He also has a very interesting skill that allows me to interject some kind of prophetic visions and things of that kind. He communes with spirits. He's a medium. But he's also like a weathered veteran. When they found him, he was like living off grid in the mountains of Maine. Like fur trapping, because as far as he knows, his last group of adventurers died, basically, and he sort of gets pulled back into it, and becomes a member of this party. So he's kind of the guiding light in this. Like everyone else is experiencing Vassan and the supernatural for the first time. And he's lived it for years, so he's kind of like the shepherd on this journey. So he has almost a kind of dad energy about him. Also, John has some solid one-liners, which is outstanding. And yeah, so I really enjoy that character. John as a player is always down for whatever, it seems, which is very fun, and also rolls horribly, which is great for me. I think John and Matt are in a competition to see who can roll the worst, and they're both winning. But I do love Cyrus as a character. I've had a lot of fun. I have a lot of like plot stuff with him that's sort of coming out. Yeah, he's got some NPCs that are in play, that are in the works. A lot of fun stuff that's going to happen with him. So I am very much looking forward to that. I'm going to check our chats here real quick. I need to catch up on the episodes. Yeah, there's only 2 episodes, Snow. There's only episode 26 and 27. We're starting. If you have not heard of Mundus Novus, I can't fault you on that. We did run the first 2 seasons, essentially, off stream. And we're only putting them on stream because Melissa has asked me to kind of show her the ropes on how to do actual play streaming. So we figured the start of Arc 3 would be a good time to do that. Perhaps I'll do a recap of some kind for that, like an official recap. But yeah, only the first 2 episodes of Season 3 are up right now. It's all we've done. It's a monthly game, so 26 and 27 are those episodes. So definitely go check those out. We're starting a new arc in New Orleans. Very fun. Let's see here. What are some tips for balancing immersion in an RP-intense scene versus jokes and quips from other players that might ruin the moment? Okay, what are some tips for balancing immersion in a roleplay intense scene versus jokes and quips from other players that might ruin the moment? Okay, so I'm going to approach this from a player standpoint until I can think of something from the GM standpoint. As a player, like the number one tip is read the room, right? Is like you'll see intense roleplay scenes on this channel, and we're not afraid to make a quip, right? Sometimes there are scenes where two characters are crying their eyeballs out, and that's not an appropriate time to make a quip. Sometimes there's a lighthearted, heart-to-heart, like it's a sentimental moment, but it's not super duper serious, and it's okay to make a little quip. It's one of those things where it's read the room, right? It's read the room and read your joke, because if your joke takes away from the scene and takes the spotlight towards you, then it's not the right time for that joke. You wait till that scene's over and then make that same joke, right? It's still applicable because it just happened, but the scene's over. You don't want to interject your own thoughts into there. So like that's the number one tip is to read the room, is to read the table and figure that out. And if you're playing online, I would say you can. There are absolutely jokes that I say I say on stream that I have previously said in our Zoom chat window. Just to see how it goes over. If I see it happen and one of the players glances down and they get a little smile out of it and they keep role playing, I know that was a funny joke, and then I'll say it out loud after the scene ends, right? So again, it's very much read the room. It's very much read the room, and from a GM perspective, talk to your table. Unfortunately, everything falls back on talking to your table, right? If you want to have these intense role play scenes, then in your session 0, or if you know one of them is coming up in a session, just remind players, like, hey guys, look, there's the potential for a very intense role play scene in this session. I want to give that room to breathe, right? I want to open up the table, let this happen, see how we're feeling, and then just sort of play with that situation, right? Don't interrupt, just kind of let it happen. There, like a lot of the times we in our more heavy RP games, with especially with like more heavy intense RP, there are very few times where we are surprised that a heavy moment happens. And you can usually tell because when I'm surprised, I go, did not see that coming. But we sort of know going in. So especially as the GM, you should kind of have an idea of like, this is what's happening here. What scenes we have today could provoke an interesting thing, especially if you like dig into someone's backstory or bringing up an NPC from the past or something like that. You kind of know that kind of thing. But again, there's also a level of comfortability back on the player side of things. Like the Void crew, as we call ourselves. So like me, Gnome, Aris, KP, and Dot. We've been playing together for like, I don't know, 4 years. So we are comfortable in kind of reading that reading the room. But we're comfortable in that to know when it is appropriate and when it is not appropriate to make those kind of jokes, because we've been playing together for so long. We've had so many of those scenes for so long that it just becomes almost second nature. So if you can get a table like that where you're playing with these people over and over again and you're having intense role play, not just intense combat, and doing that more and more, it becomes second nature to you. And then you can take that experience and bring it to other tables, right? Because you've learned how to read that table, you can see other things at other tables, which is pretty fun. So yeah, give that a shot. As a reminder, I know we've been streaming for about 40 minutes now. I see some people coming in. Dead Aussie Gamer, hey buddy, how you doing? Are you coming to PAX? Because that'd be cool. So just a reminder, this is our monthly Q&A. If you have questions, feel free to launch them at me. Again, they can be about, tabletop games, D&D, all the other Free League stuff we play, running actual play streams, actual play podcasts, the community management side of things, whatever you got. Just do me a favor and preface it with a question for me in there. I had the privilege of meeting Dead Aussie Gamer at Gen Con years ago. Amazing human being. And I've actually played in one or two, at least one game with Dead Aussie Gamer, and it was a blast. It was an absolute blast. I believe that was the train game we played, which was super fun. Not PAXing, sadly. Gen Con next year might be a thing. I got to get back to Gen Con. I got to get back to Gen Con. If there's a lot of you out there that want to see me at conventions, let me know. PAX Unplugged is easy because it's like a couple hours away from where I live. So we just quickly take a train down there. Easy peasy. But I do miss conventions. So if there's a convention you want to see me at, let me know. And I'll do my best to get on there. This is a fairly easy question, and unfortunately, it's a cheap answer. Oh shit! I've been forgetting to say who asked these questions. Aris asked the question about the Dungeon Lich. G asked the one about Mundus Novus. Lectu asked the one that we just answered about what are some tips for balancing immersion. And Neek is asking, what's the process for vetting people who will appear in long form actual plays? This is a cheap answer, and I apologize. So I have an inner circle that I have built over years. If one of the inner circle recommends you, as in they've played with you, or they've seen you before, and they say, "Hey, I think this person would be a great fit for the table." Done. You're vetted. If I have played with you before in the past, you're probably vetted. And we used to do a lot of one shots back in the day when I had time before I had a child. We would do not 24 hour, I would have died. We did 12-hour charity streams, each one containing of a 4 3-hour one shots. So I would run through a whole lot of people playing with those every month. They were exhausting to put on, but I did meet a lot of people and kind of play with a lot of people that later on came to be on the channel for longer term games. But that's really it. For me, outside of that, if I see you popping up on my socials or on my for yous or whatever, like if the algorithm pushes you towards me and I like what I see, I will usually dig through. I will dig through and take a look at your following. I'll dig through and take a look at any other actual plays you've been in. I'll watch some of the actual play episodes because it's obviously like vetting is a thing, but for me it's like if you love rules and you play best with a set of like strict rules, and we have a whimsical, barely follows the rules, super roleplay heavy table, you might be an amazing role player, but you're not good for that table. So a lot of what I'll do is if you come across my purview, is I will look to see what kind of role player you are, and see, do I have a table or do I have an upcoming table for you? Like, doesn't mean you're not a good player or a good GM or whatever. It's more of, do I have the people to assemble around you to both enhance yours and enhance their sort of game and make an awesome show, right? It sucks being the rules lawyer in a game of whimsy, where no one gives a shit about the rules. I've been on both sides of that, and it is, it's rough. It is rough. So yeah, it's less about vetting and more like, do you play? Do you have a good setup? Does your microphone quality suck? Can we see your face? Are you comfortable on camera? Right, those are like the big things. And then do I have a table or game that is fitting for you? I have plenty of people that are like, hey, I don't like sci-fi. So I'm like, cool. Well, we have a sci-fi heavy year coming up. I don't have any spots for you because we're playing all kinds of sci-fi. We got a question in the chat here. I'm thinking about writing this is from Draftier Melissa. Question, I'm thinking about writing a mystery landscape. Do you have any advice for the content that would be best covered in that to ensure high quality sandbox for players with lots of options? Yeah, so one of the things I would say is for Tales from the Loop, don't be me, and learn the difference between a hometown hack and a mystery landscape, because Glenbrook is mistitled. Glenbrook is a hometown hack. A mystery landscape is like a brief introduction about a town or where this is, and then basically plot hooks, semi-fleshed out plot hooks. And associated NPCs. So that way, like, you have, here's the plot hook, here's the truth behind the plot hook, here's a couple of NPCs, and that way I, as a GM, can take that and run with it, right? That is what a mystery landscape is. Now, they have mystery landscapes in, I want to say, the core book. The core book has mystery landscapes, and I want to say Our Friends of the Machines, which is the second Tales from the Loop book, which is the campaign book, has the rules for a hometown hack. So they are different things. I messed up the names of those things. I am going back to correct it eventually. So if you're looking for a mystery landscape, that's the basics. Is what I do is I look. If I'm writing for an already existing publication, what I'll do is I will go right to that chapter in the book and we'll say mystery landscape, and here's how the company lays out a mystery landscape. I will then open up a new document and I will make those same headlines, those same headers and whatever, those same titles and subtitles and shit. And then I will look to see how they formatted it. It's on average, it's 3 to 5 paragraphs about the town, which is great to know because I can write 4 pages on a town. But the mystery landscape is only about 3 to 5. I'm like, okay, cool. That gives me constraints, right? And then look at how the truth of the mystery forms, right? Because it'll tell you, like, here's what what's happening, but here's the actual truth behind it, right? And relate that back to whatever it is. Like, I do a lot of supernatural stuff, but the book does a lot of, like, how does this relate back to the loop? And if you look at, like, my mystery Carnival of Screams, if you have seen it, very little of it relates back to the loop in the actual play we did. But if you look at the module that I'm working on, a lot of it relates directly back to loop. So I twisted a lot of that to make it far more loop focused as opposed to like a weird thing that's happening. Do you have any advice for the content that would be best covered in that to ensure a high quality sandbox? So play with lots of options. So what I would do is for a mystery landscape is not make them connected. So how do I explain this? To make them all connected by theme or by background, but not like Adventure 1 to Adventure 2 to Adventure 3 connected, right? So, like, I have one that is all about, every adventure that I wrote is all related back to the loop. So there's 4 adventures, all of them are experiments done by the loop. So that's the connecting arc there, is all of these things are loop related, right? Because then it makes it easier for me as a GM to take that, read like, okay, loop issue, loop issue, loop issue, loop issue. Great. Let's take that, and I can weave all 4 of these, or 2 or 3 or whatever, into an overarching sort of campaign, and we can bounce through that. But if you have one that's like time travel, the loop, ghosts, and it kind of jumps all around, maybe I can use one of those, maybe I can use 2 of those, but they seem kind of disjointed. So I would pick an underlying theme. Usually, like, I do my themes by faction. So I have one that is for, like, the supernatural. I have one that is backed up around one single villainous character. I have one that's backed up around the loop. And then spread them around your town, right? So you have, like, a little blurb about the town so that people have, like, an idea of what this town is. But then don't be like, all of these events take place at school. Right, have one at school, have one at like the local library, have one at, the baseball diamond, wherever it is, have one at the local Radio Shack, right? So spread it out around town so that the kids have to go back and forth to places, right? So that they can, the GM can build the world around them using your template to sort of build out this world. So that would be my suggestion for that. I hope that made sense. I hope that was thorough. Dead Aussie Gamer says it was my first Through the Breach game. Yeah. You can drop the link. I think links are open. Yeah, drop a link. You can come that. Yeah, it was Malifaux. Is that what it was? The card. It was cards. I want to say it was cards. We had to play with like poker cards. So it sounds like Hometown Hack is a detailed setting and Mystery Landscape is a sandbox adventure. Correct. And I fucked that up when I was first making it. So yeah, Hometown Hack. But again, a lot of what I said for the Mystery Landscape applies to Hometown Hack. I went through the town, because if you open the book of Tales from the Loop, or really any setting guide, it literally has a list of like headlines, of headings, and I went through and I looked at the headings for Mallorn Isles, whatever. I don't speak Swedish. Whatever the Swedish location is, and then the Boulder City location, and I kind of compared those two and sort of smashed them together. And that was those were the headings I started with to build Glenbrook. Like, what does a typical day in the 80s look like? How does the U.S. loop work? What to do in Glenbrook? What's outside of Glenbrook? That kind of thing. How do people get around? So I used a lot of what was already in the book as example headlines, and then I sort of switched things around and made that happen in there. No one can speak Swedish. It's okay. Yeah, so I base my template off of what the book provides. It's a very my mind says, why reinvent the wheel? There's already an outline for you. Just take the outline and put in the information, right? Yeah, cool. Oh, this is a fun question, G. Hold on, I need some of this beverage. Okay. This is a very fun question. And a reminder, YouTube, Twitch, if you have questions, put question, throw it in the chat. Who would win in a fight? This is from G. Who would win in a fight? Malcom from 6 and 20, Mitch, or Malik? So if you have not seen 6 and 20, that show holds a dear space in my heart. Malcolm K was a 13-year-old boy that I played in 6 and 20. Mitch is a 14 or 15-year-old boy that I play in Tales from the Loop. And Malik is a, I don't know, mid to late 20s hacker. Malik goes down in a fight immediately. He's built like a wet paper bag. All of his stats were in brain stuff and hacking and that kind of thing. I think he's moderately capable of using a gun. Mitch, if Mitch can invent his way out of something, then he's probably good. Although he does have a lot of points in body because he was a hick. But the answer is hands down, unequivocally Malcolm. Malcolm was a such a tragic character. Malcolm. So 6 and 20 is City of Mist, and in City of Mist, something happens in your characters' lives that opens them up to be a gateway for a rift, and a rift is a character of legend, or a persona of legend, or something of the kind. Malcolm was the rift for Peter Pan. And you know the basics of Peter Pan, right? Like, Peter Pan kills pirates. Peter Pan saves Tiger Lily, right? He plays and has fun all day, right? But there are like darker notes to the book that are hinted at but not spoken. One of those is that the Lost Boys, they age. The Lost Boys don't just stop. Only Malcolm. Only Peter doesn't age. Only Pan doesn't age. The Lost Boys age, and it is hinted at that if they escape, the Lost Boys become pirates. Or sometimes Peter lets them escape, so he always has pirates to fight. If the forces of good and evil aren't in balance, they don't escape. And you can infer my meaning there. So Malcolm's character was perpetually a 13-year-old boy. His rift wouldn't let him age, despite the fact that he was like 30. Something happened in his childhood that he actually had. He had a mental illness, which basically age regression. So despite the fact that he was 30, he was locked in the mental state of a 13-year-old because he had a traumatic event, and that caused the opening for the rift, and the rift made him physically 13-year-old boy. So he lived with whimsy, and he would jump around and do all silly kinds of shit, but he was pliable because he was 13. There was a character in the game played by Greg, amazingly played by Greg, who he was very dead set on one thing. He wanted to reunite with his family, and Malcom looked up to him as both like a friend and like a pseudo parental figure. And because of that connection, the character's name was Gephardt. Gephardt was able to manipulate Malcom into doing things because he convinced Malcom it was a game. And so anytime Malcom thought it was a game, he would just be happily able to do all kinds of crazy things. And his power was imagination. So he would imagine simple things like, we're running away, there's a door in that building that we didn't see before because I imagined there would be a door. But then he also imagined like terrifying things. And also like he has shadow manipulation. Like in the story, when his shadow gets disconnected and he's playing like shadow games with his shadow, there was a scene where one of his friends was being hurt. And he lost control, and like shadows consumed the building. It was a bad time. Yeah, so Malcom is 100% a loose cannon who is convinced everything is a game and wouldn't realize that he would be really fighting Mitch or Malik until it was far too late. So Malcom unequivocally wins that fight. Where does Dr. Barden rank? He dies immediately. He dies before Malik. He's elderly. There's no way he gets around that. Greg's character was great. Oh, Zalvi, hey, welcome for the Switch. Took me a minute to realize on the wrong. I put it. We're streaming on both platforms. It's totally fine. We're utilizing Twitch's multi-stream allowance here. All right, let me see. Let me get. You know what? G asked a question today. Let me swing down here and answer that one. And that may be our final question. Malik outruns Barden is for sure the answer. Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's see. Let's do our last question here because it's almost 9 o'clock. G asked this today over on TikTok, and if you guys are not following us on TikTok, I know I don't post there often, but again, like all of our social medias, it's unMadeGaming. We're on TikTok, X, Blue Sky, Mastodon, Threads, Instagram, Facebook. You can find us everywhere. I don't post on all of them because it's incredibly overwhelming, but I do play around with several of them, and I'm probably on TikTok far too much. But we posted a little story over on TikTok saying, hey, if you guys got questions, and G added one over there. Can you share some tips for handing out magical items to your D&D players? How do you balance too many with not enough? All right, let me preface this and say that I am notoriously bad at balancing Dungeons and Dragons. I am open with my players anytime we play D&D and say, hey guys, like I'm bad at balancing. I don't like it. I balance for story, narrative, and lore and all that fun stuff. So a lot of my combats are completely unbalanced. I also typically when I play D&D, there's like a rule in 5th edition where like you can only attune to 2 or 3 items at a time. Most often, I just ignore that rule. I don't really understand why it exists. Something about like power creep, but then just like make bigger monsters. Like I don't really understand. So I am actually not good at balancing magical items. I will say there are so many blogs and guides and things like that out there. I encourage you to Google some of them, some Reddit posts. What I do is one way that I try to balance is I try to balance items in the party, right? I don't want one guy with 3 magical items and then the rest of the party with none. So if unless I'm running a module, which I rarely do, I will either find an existing item from a book, or find an existing item that's made online, or make my own item, and I will kind of tailor that towards the person. I'm actually running a campaign of D&D right now, and the players there's six players in the party, and they just received 4 magical items. And I did not make them for the individual person. I made 4 magical items that were tailored to the location, and I said, here you go, once they got them. So they had to sort it out and be like, okay, well, I don't want to take 2. Who can I give this 1 to, kind of thing. It works for me, but can it work for someone else? And that was very interesting to watch the players sort of self-regulate and self-balance, that kind of thing, which is also great. Like, talk to your players, be like, hey, don't hoard shit. Just because you found the magic item, if someone needs it more or could benefit more from it, give it to the other person, or something like that. Snowdog says, our table hack for the number of magical items you can attune to is the standard amount, which is 2 or 3, plus your intelligence bonus. I like that. That's very cool. Yeah, that is pretty cool. There used to be a rule, and I think like third or 3.5 edition, which was you know whatever your starting languages are, and then for every 1 point in your intelligence bonus, like if you have a +2, you can learn 2 additional languages, which I think is really cool, and I think it's a waste that they got rid of that. Yeah, so I've balanced based on players. So I don't want to have too many things stacked up on players. I also balance for like look at your monsters, right? Like, are you in an area that all of the monsters you have, or at least all of the big bad monsters you have resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing from non-magical weapons, meaning that they take half damage from any non-magical weapon, and your whole party has non-magical weapons, then it's probably, if you're going to keep throwing those monsters at your party, it's probably time to give them a magical weapon, right? Do you have a lot of guys who their AC is like 20, 21, and your players are consistently rolling like 17, 18, they just can't get that mark? Might be time to give them a +1, right? Or vice versa. Are you destroying their armor class every time? Well, maybe it's time to give them something that raises their armor class, right? So it's definitely one of those things where, like, watch combat. In the same way that I don't balance combat well, I will watch the combat and realize, okay, the guy that I made has too many abilities, and if I use all of them like they're designed to be used, I will kill everybody. So I'm just going to not use these 2 abilities, and we'll see how it goes. Or this guy, I gave him way too much health, and I can see this combat's dragging on. Let's go ahead and reduce a little bit of that health down, because I don't want this fight to last until it's not fun anymore. I want it to be fun and engaging. So I use combat as a judge to see when it's a good time to give people magical items, and then I balance them throughout the party. I don't really care about balancing it to the world or wherever they are. So my 6-pack of players, they have 4 magical items that are all custom made. They're all themed around something. Like, they just completed the Corrupted Earth Temple, and so all of the items, it was a shield, a sword, a necklace, and something else that are a cape, or a cloak, that are all earth themed, because that was the theme of the place. And then I also have several items worked up for the fire temple, the water temple, and the air temple. So they will have themed items on that. And that's on top of any other things they may find in the course of their quests, which will be very cool. In my opinion, that leans towards being unbalanced between players, as a wizard would get more than a barbarian, for example. True, but it works for us. Yeah. Yeah, it could be. It could very well be that. But again, it's you can rebalance that by providing less magical items, right? Like, if you know the wizard can equip 10 magical items, or, well, let's say 6 magical items, which seems more reasonable, and the barbarian can only equip 4, then you just put more barbarian items in the game and less wizard items in the game. So you can self-regulate that as the GM, right? Like, you decide where a magical item comes from, or how it gets to the players. Yeah, cool. So That I hope that answers that question. Let me see. Do I want to do one more, guys? Do we want to do one more question? Actually, you know what I'll do is I'll say we have the most people watching we've ever had so far. We got 10 over on the Twitch and like 18 over here on the YouTubes. Before I either end or find one more question, I will toss it to you on our various chats. Do you have any questions about GMing, playing, tabletop games in general, running actual plays, unMadeGaming, or the like? By all means, throw it in the comments. If you bombard me, I will pick one or two of them, but the rest will be added to our list and will be answered in December. So yeah, what other questions might you guys have while I quickly scroll through here? And see if we have any other juicy cues to A. I have a question. How do I handle item shopping? This is great. That's great. Cool. So we have two questions so far. The first question comes from Garlic the Goblin over on Twitch. How do you handle item shopping, prices, etc.? Very simply, I say, what is this shop? Is this an item shop? Great. So for games like D&D and games like Cypher System or Numenera, where that can happen more often, I feel like they have often a table in the book that says, here are adventuring gear. I say, is this a general store? Do they have adventuring gear? Great. Go to the table and the adventuring gear. That's what it costs. Same thing for basic weapons and armor. If it's on the chart, they probably have that. And that's what its cost is, right? I will sometimes do, let's say you help that shopkeep out. I use percentages. So if you help the general store owner, maybe he'll give you a 10% discount, which is usually pretty simple. You take the number from the book, make it 10% less, which is usually like 1 coin less, more often than not. 10% is a nice, easy number to work with. But then I don't really do unless the players explicitly ask for a shopping montage. I often will just say, you're in town, you can replenish whatever you need, you can buy whatever, there's an item shop, there's an armor shop, there's whatever, you can buy whatever is in the book. If you want to do something outside of that, let's discuss, kind of thing. So I don't really do montages very often. When I do, I try to keep it short, because as fun as a montage is, I don't want to spend a whole episode shopping. I want to get you back to the story, kind of thing. So I most often keep things the same price. If I make things more or less expensive, usually I will keep a note somewhere of that and a reason why, right? Like if you're in a destitute town, or you're in like some sort of some borderland town, like some frontier town that is far away from a major city that it takes them so long to get goods, those goods will probably cost more, right? That's and I'll write that down. Like everything costs 50% more, and then I'll have I usually have some sort of digital device like my phone or my tablet when I'm gaming, and it's very easy to just type in what is 50% of 10. 5. Okay, it costs 15 gold instead of 10 gold, right? Something like that. Yeah, so I try to keep it as simple as possible. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel when it comes to costs. So yeah, that's what I try to do. And we do have one more question, I believe, from Zalvi. We will take that one down. Actually, you know what? Screw it. Why not? What are your thoughts on how to run a game in which participants are very passive? I'm finding it very hard to run games for them. Here's my stock standard answer. Talk to your players. talk to your players. Number one, talk to your players. Say, hey, why? Why are you passive? Is the story not engaging? Is the gameplay not engaging? Are you not enjoying this campaign, this game, the mechanics? Is there something I can do to make you more interactive? That's always step one, is talk to your table. Maybe you have a very passive table. And if you're not finding it fun, then maybe that's not the right table for you. A lot of times people who are, especially like in the GM seat, often are like, okay, well, this is my table. I have to make things work. If you want an interactive, active table and you have very passive players, it's okay to step back. That might not be for you, right? It's okay to step down from that and realize that, like, don't try to force yourself to have fun there. However, yeah, step one, talk to your players. Step two, assess your own situation. And then step three would be try to add interactive moments, right? Like, I find a lot of people will, it's very easy to start doing some role play or some action or whatever, and then the quietest person doesn't engage. It's very easy to forget the quietest person. So what I'll try to do is I will engage here, and then I'll stop at a cliffhangery moment and say, okay, we're going to stop here, and we're going to cut to this person. What are you doing in this moment? And then if they're a little frazzled, be like, okay, here's what's happening around you. This guy's doing this. He pulls out his pistol, does this. This guy's doing this. He's jumping down from the thing. You see all this happen. How do you interact with this moment? And they go, oh, okay. A lot of people aren't as fluent in roleplay or improv as the people you see online are, right? It's kind of our job to do that. But like reframing it into that moment can assist in that. I know plenty of players, and we have plenty of players actually on the streams who have said that they are far better at, like, explain the scenario, give me a minute to think about it. And they're not as good as on the fly improv about what their characters do. So you kind of have to figure out, is that all of your players? Do they need to play a slower game? Right? Is there some? Do they want more combat? Do they want less role play? Do they want, So talk to the players. Like I said, assess your situation, and then try to add more interactive moments. Have an NPC talk to the player. Don't wait for the player character to talk to the NPC. If that NPC has knowledge and is there, have that conversation start. You don't have to be passive. You can be active, which sort of forces them to interact with you. You can kind of meet them halfway. And it could very well be that they're just not comfortable with it yet. Maybe they've never had a game like this. I know plenty of players who have played in a game with me, and they're like, that was my first game that I've ever had that level of interactive conversation. Usually it's just like, here's your quest, go do it, fight monsters. And we didn't do that. We haven't fought monsters in 4 episodes. And I'm like, yeah, well, that's kind of how I say. G also adds, I would also be very encouraging if they seem nervous to jump in a scene like that. Also might be more lenient about what they want to do. That's true. I think, I don't want to overstep here, but I think G has a similar game where her table was not used to big role-playing scenes. And so she's trying to slowly coax them into more role-play. Yeah, you just sort of like lead them in, ask those leading questions, bring NPCs to them, have someone bump into their character, like physically bump into them to start some sort of narrative, have things happen around them. If you are passive as a GM, your players will be exponentially passive as well. Don't expect your players to pick up on things if you're not actively sort of forcing them out into the world, and that can happen as a GM. You may think you're being far more active than you are, but you're also feeding on the energy of the table. And if the table's passive, you might be not as quick to bring out an arc or bring out an NPC or bring out a bit of story there. Cool. That was a freaking solid question. I hope that answers your question. I hope that was useful. I hope all of these questions were useful to you in some capacity, either entertainment or actual tips you can actually use in your game. That being said, that is where I'm going to wrap this session of Ask Lich. We'll be back, I believe it is the Monday before Christmas. So we'll be back in a few weeks in December for our December one. So again, you can ask your questions on the edited version of this episode over on our YouTube. I will be posting on social medias the couple days before. You can ask them there, or you can go ask them in our Discord if you are a patron, or you can ask them live during the next game. But for now, that's where we're going to wrap things. As a reminder, there's no Thursday game. It is U.S. Thanksgiving. There's no Thursday game next week because I will be at PAX. And that's your general reminder. I will be at PAX December 1, 2, and 3. So if you too will be at PAX, come say hi. We have a bunch of people from the community heading down there to Philly. We'll be doing a meetup. We'll be doing a little bar run situation. We'll be playing some games together. We'll be meeting some people, possible interviews, possible vlog situation, new videos, new content coming, and planning for the coming year. So if you're at PAX, come say hi, come hang out, come meet me, my partner, a bunch of our friends, meet other members of the community, and come hang out. But that's it. I hope this was all informational or entertaining for all of you guys, and I will see you next month, December 19th. So from all of us to you, bye-bye.